For an hour. So ask me anything. Let's talk about it, y'all. Middle America.
And you ain't black.
The first time ever any.
What are you people?
We're Americans.
We are Americans indeed, dear listener. My name is Vincent. This is Middle America. We are not left wing. We are not right wing. We are just right. That's what I usually say, but yeah, I've got free time. I didn't want to do a video. I did see the AOC thing where she was in handcuffs, and then she did the fight the power thing and all that. So shout out to them. I didn't think that was worthy of a video. I mean, obviously it was a photo op. Obviously, we know AOC has already, She's the big one with political theater, right? When she was in the parking lot, crying over the kids at the border, supposedly. But I just didn't feel like that was a Middle America worthy story. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna open up the phone lines or the text lines or whatever lines there are. And if anybody has any questions about any topic, doesn't have to be, any other of the hot burning topics. It could be what's your favorite fruit, whatever it is. This is a ask me anything session. You guys can ask me anything. Nothing is off limits. If I don't want to answer the question, I'll simply say I'm not going to answer that question. But you guys can ask me literally anything, and I will do my best. I will do my best to answer the question. I will do my best to answer it as much as I possibly can. You have a thing you say sometimes, sadaqt. I don't know how it's spelled. What does it mean? Sadaqt is an Arabic term that's used, and it basically means I agree with you. You've spoken the truth, right? It means you've spoken the truth. Sadaqt. So you say, Derek Jeter, Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time. You say sadaqt, obviously, because that's true. Thank you for the question, Steven. Hey, Vin, here from St. Pete, Florida. What's up? We're gonna be in Florida pretty soon here, inshallah. Beto says, "What's up, Vin?" Shout out to you, Beto. I see that you got the 49ers thing. I really don't understand this whole push to get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo, to be honest with you. Was it 2 or 3 years ago you guys were in the Super Bowl and he was one, missed pass away from getting a ring of his own. He got injured the next year, and then he got you to the NFC Championship the year after that. So I don't understand this big push to get rid of Jimmy Garoppolo. I just think that's crazy. Like, why? Basically, it means you're right. There you go. And Alden is I'm not going to give up where he is because but he knows what he's talking. I'm pretty sure he's a native Arabic speaker, inshallah. Amin says, what shows would you go on? Dora Hinkle, Breaking Points, TYT, Brianna Joy Gray, anything stopping you? You need to blow up. I actually had an interview with Jimmy Dore. Jimmy came on this show last year, and I'd never released it because we had major technical difficulties with the audio, and I'm still kicking myself for that. But, it's a qadar of Allah. What can you do? But I would go on all of those shows. I would go on Jackson Hinkle's show when he's not talking about the Russia-Ukraine thing. Like, I like Jackson. In the main, I just think he goes a little bit overboard with the Ukraine. Like, I feel like he's like completely on the other side of it, and he's lacking some balance there. But I would still go on his show. I mean, if he wanted to debate those finer points, he seems willing to debate his points. But I think there's a way that we can, say that this is madness relative to Ukraine, Russia, without going completely to the other side on the Russian thing. That's just my opinion. What does your God care about nurturing and spayed dogs and cats? Well, Jesus said that not even a sparrow. He says, isn't a sparrow sold for 2 pennies, and yet not one of them falls out of the tree without the permission of your Father. So basically, Jesus is saying even little worthless animals that we don't think are important, God pays really strict attention to, which is one of the reasons why I think we have to be careful. You know, it's a normal thing for Christians to completely like dismiss the animals' rights movement. But I do think the abuse of animals, especially when you combine it with capitalism in the meat industry, I do think at some level we have to answer for that. I think the closest where I'm at relative to animals, or where I should be, or where we should be as Christians, is sort of the Native American aspect of it. And, you know, this might be stereotypical because I saw this in Dances with Wolves, where basically they were killing the buffalo and eating him, but they were basically speaking to the spirit of the buffalo, apologizing and saying, you know, whatever. And then they used every part of the animal for fur and drums and things like that. I think that that's the closest to a biblical ethic relative to animals. But the scripture actually says a lot about animals, and I think that that's actually a major, major blind spot in contemporary American Christianity. Anthony says, how you doing? I'm doing really good. Thoughts on AOC getting the photo op? Well, you know, look, you know, AOC, I said it at the beginning, AOC, you know, she knows how to play the camera. I think she's you know, anytime I hear people mock the intelligence of Trump, AOC, any of these people, they got there for very specific reasons. It's very difficult to play that Game of Thrones and get to where you need to get to. I mean, Cenk found that out about a year ago, right? He just thought, oh, I'm Cenk. We've got the 5 million things on YouTube. I'll just go in there and take care of it. AOC came out of nowhere in New York City and beat pretty much one of the staples there. So I respect AOC's political acumen. I don't think it's because she's marginally good looking, because, I mean, to be honest with you, in my view, that's not really her thing, her advantage from my view. But I mean, I live with Sori, so, you know, I probably have a skewed idea. I think it's because she's very good at manipulating the political levers that need to be manipulated. And whether or not we agree with her, you have to respect her. So I respect AOC as a politician. Obviously, she was not handcuffed. This is very similar to the situation with you know, she was crying over the kids at the border and all that. Then we saw the full shot. It was a parking lot. And of course, she wasn't crying when Biden did it and all that. We all know this. It's a political game, and we know they're playing political games, but it landed with the audience it needed to land with. I'm in the middle of watching Handmaid's Tale right now, so there's a lot of that. You know, she was carrying that energy and putting the fist up and all that, and, you know, it's all good. Now, look, the people that know me, know me personally, know that, you know, there's a big difference between showmanship and activism. So the activism that we were involved with got us, you know, we a protracted battle with the Attorney General that almost ended up in the Supreme Court. We had 3 governors endorse our petition to the Supreme Court. So my point is, like, there's a difference. Anybody who's an actual activist knows there's a difference between getting a citation for, you know, disturbing the peace or blocking the public versus being arrested, having an indictment, all the other stuff. So, you know, obviously it didn't, you know, it didn't cost her anything to do that, but it did get her political points, and with her group. And right now, you got to understand, like, right now the Democrats are getting dragged over the coals here because of their apparent failure on Roe v. Wade, which I think is ridiculous. Everybody thought that, you know, I was telling people for the last 2 or 3 years, you know, this is going to be over in my lifetime. And people didn't believe us, but that's because I was on the streets talking to people. So all of the folks on the other side of this discussion didn't take this as seriously as they should have. Not just the politicians, but right now, what's happening is, especially when you look at Anna Kasparian's meltdown when the Roe v. Wade decision got leaked and whatever, where she says, I'm done with Democrats. And then she changed it to, I'm done with establishment Democrats and things of that nature. So I think this from Ilhan and AOC was a way to differentiate themselves or individuate themselves from the Pelosi, Biden type Democrats. They're like, taking this sort of Handmaid's Tale sort of motif and saying, hey, we're a different kind of Democrat. So I think the target audience that she was going after, it landed. For people that are going to look at it critically, there's almost nothing AOC can do in a public fashion that they're going to like anyway. And I think AOC is very, very good at playing to her crowd. She had a very big misstep with the whole union guy, with the Amazon union worker. But for the most part, she's pretty good at playing to her crowd and knowing what her crowd needs and wants. So that's how I look at it. Amin says that if an IBF building was on fire, you had a choice between saving one adult or 10 frozen embryos, what would you choose? It depends. Are the 10 embryos my kids? Because if they're my kids, I mean, I'll change the thing. If there was one embryo that was my kid, and there was a building full of 10,000 people, I'd take the embryo. I'd take my kid and let the rest of the folks in the building perish. If they were strangers, I would save whoever's closest to me. Now, most people would say I'll take the 10 embryos over most people would say I'll take the grown adult over the embryo, and then people say, aha, so that means you don't really believe that embryos are alive, therefore we can kill children via abortion. I don't think that's a very good sort of logical trap, but I'll tell you why. If I were to say to you, okay, you can only save one person. There's a 25-year-old kid who just got a contract with the NBA, and there's a 95-year-old man with terminal cancer, and one of them has to die. Who are you going to save? Most people answer that question by saying, I would save the 25-year-old. I wouldn't save the 95-year-old. Most people would say they would save the 25-year-old, but that doesn't mean that we say, aha, that means you don't believe older people are living. That means we can kill everybody that's 95. That means we can kill everybody with cancer. Obviously not. When you get put in a triage situation, you're always going to be in an impossible situation. So to make the logical leap from that to abortion, which is usually how that argument is presented, doesn't work for the reason I just explained to you about the old man and the 25-year-old. Have you thought more on your feelings on circumcision? We got interrupted last time before I finished. I feel like we don't have a mutilate kids to honor our religious beliefs. That's a very, very challenging. I mean, look, in the Old Testament, that was a requirement. What's fascinating is in the New Testament, that was like the first argument that happened. It was about circumcision. That was like one of the major issues in the New Testament. Because what happened was you had all these people, the first converts were all Jewish, right? And they all had the Hebrew Bible and the background, and Genesis 15, the institution of circumcision and things like that. And so when these non-Jews started coming into the church and saying, hey, we want to believe in Jesus too, the Jewish contingent of the church was like, okay, that's fine, but you have to get circumcised because that's the mark that you're in with God. And Paul basically says, the people who are telling you that are going to hell. It's what he said. He said, no, that's part of the old way. It's part of the old law. And you do not, if you're a non-Jew, you do not need to do that to be accepted by God. Now, so there's a theological argument for circumcision. There's also supposedly I want to respect my children, so I'm not going to say what we decided. But what I will say is the idea that circumcision promotes cleanliness, and that if your kid's uncircumcised, he'll get all these infections, is just mostly mythology. So Would I support legislation to ban the practice of circumcision itself? You know, people use the term female circumcision, and that's not right. It's female genital mutilation, and the goal of female genital mutilation is completely different. It's removing the clitoris so that the woman won't experience sexual pleasure, because you're in a hyper patriarchal society, etc., etc. And I'm a 100,000% against that, and I don't care if it's your religion or not. Now, obviously, the removal of foreskin is not as detrimental as female genital mutilation, but I feel like they're in the same neighborhood. I would probably stay out of that vote, but I wouldn't. Would I support legislation to ban circumcision, though? Here's the closest analogy I can come with this. I really like the question. It's challenging. Here's the side to it. I'm going to push back on this. So I'm completely against chemical interventions and surgical intervention for minors relative to the transgender question. I'm completely against it. 100,000% against it. You turn 18, whatever, that's a different story. But as long as you're a minor, I believe I'm completely against that. But I would not support legislation to stop parents from doing that to their children. Because I think there should be a very wide berth as far as what we allow parents to make decisions of with their kids. Now, obviously, the difference between circumcision in most cases and trans medication and surgery is that presumably the kid in the trans situation would be saying, hey, I need this, yada, 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 yada. So I understand the analogy is not completely perfect, but for me, I think it's terrible. I'm not going to go as far as saying child abuse relative to puberty blockers and surgeries with trans kids. I'm not going to say that's abuse, because to me, child abuse has to do with motive. And I think all the parents that are doing that with their kids, I'm speaking as a parent, they're doing that because they believe their kid's going to kill themselves or something if they don't do it. So that's why, although I disagree vehemently with the practice, I'm not going to call it child abuse, because the intention of the parents is to support their child and save their life. And if you've ever had a child that's ever even flirted with suicide, your entire world stops, and you do everything and anything to make it so that your child stops talking about that and stops, the ideation. So I think that's probably where I would leave it. I'd probably say you convince me that it's probably not a good practice, but I wouldn't legislate it because I think the parents are doing it in good faith, whether for theological reason or for a medical reason. So I think I would put that in the same category. So that's probably where I land on it. I spent a lot of time thinking through this. I missed a bunch of your guys' questions, but I really wanted to address that question with Drew, because that's a very challenging question. It's a really, really challenging question. I appreciate it. And I think that's probably where I land on that. Looking for a show on Netflix. Any recommendations? I've been watching Handmaid's Tale. I got to tell you, that show surprised me. That author, the people that are writing that show, are massively deep, and they're multi-dimensional, and it's not what you think it would be. I'm gonna do a review on Handmaid's Tale when it's over, on this channel probably. It's not a show you enjoy. It's a very, very difficult watch, and there are parts of it, to be honest with you, where, when the scenes come on, I'm just, checking out the scores and stuff like that, because you guys know, how soft I am with stuff, and, Yeah, that's a recommendation for me. I think that's a really good. What do you call it? Are you a priest? Your God is dead. I am a priest, and my God is alive. Vin, you need to react to the circumcision song. It's hilarious. Ian, send me an email. Since you have my email, I want to see. I want to see it. We probably will react to it for sure. On a tangential note, David Ping saw The Bride Price for Michael, one of the craziest stories in the O-Teen. David gladly doubles down on it. Yeah, that was a pretty crazy one. That was pretty crazy. Yes, FGM is worse, but either way, you're unnecessarily altering your child forever and bringing in risk of complications. I hear you. Unfortunately, it's also more cultural than religious in a lot of countries that I visited. FMG is 100% cultural. Right. Perhaps do a survey of circumcised males and ask if they feel fine with being circumcised. Yeah. Do you have any personal ghost stories that you're willing to tell? That's a good question. Personal ghost stories. I would not classify it as a ghost story, but I did have, in my view, a interaction with malevolent consciousnesses. Extra-dimensional malevolent consciousnesses. Let me say it that way, and I'll leave it at that. So, I don't know. Maybe that's a yes. What are your thoughts on other religions like Scientology? Are they a void taxes scheme, or is it their legitimacy? I don't. You know, there's this book called Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's a very, very important book. And what I have found in that book is that rich people are always going to find a way to skirt taxes. I don't think that they constructed this entire edifice just to, dodge taxes. It doesn't seem that way to me. It seems to me that they have a very, that they believe this stuff, especially Tom Cruise and all the rest of it. I've reached out to a couple Scientologists, talked to one who was trying to recruit me. I went back and forth with her for a while, bought the book Dianetics. I think most of these people really, really believe this stuff. I really do. And the other thing I think is that because of the financial cost to get to these other levels, you're so invested that you almost have to believe in it. You almost have to believe in it once you get to that level, because by that time you've spent probably hundreds of thousands of dollars to get to that level. And I think that's probably the bigger draw. I'm not gay, but don't like reproduction or a relationship. My mother said she had me circumcised for hygienic and sanitary reasons. Yeah, a lot of people think that. Like I said, I don't think. I think basic, self-maintenance can handle that situation. Why do ghosts ride roller coasters? To raise their spirits. That's a good one. Vin, do you know who let the dogs out? To this day, I cannot figure out who let the dogs out. Hecticia says, what is the biggest problem with modern Christianity, and how can Christianity evolve to better serve the modern world? That is a question that I really... Well, first of all, I'll say this with all sincerity. In my opinion, the biggest problem with modern Christianity is me. But if you take me off the table, probably the focus in evangelical Western Christianity on heaven is probably the bigger problem. There's a certain theological position that's very popular still in America that says one of these days we're all going to disappear. God is going to leave the wicked down here while we get whisked away, And as time moves on, the church is going to get weaker and weaker and weaker till there's only like 4 Christians on the planet. Then God's going to like zoom us away. The Antichrist is going to come and destroy everything for about 7 years. And then Jesus is going to come back and crush everybody and yada, yada, yada. I think that entire theological rubric and its implications have been extremely destructive, especially in the last 40 years. So that when something like 9/11 happens, the instinct, instead of saying, okay, what were the socio-psychological, political issues that got us to the point where these guys were willing to fly these jets into this building? Instead of listening to the complaints of bin Laden, Al-Qaeda, or just regular people in the Middle East saying, hey, you guys are unilaterally supporting Israel, yada, yada, yada. Instead of doing the hard work of looking deeply into why that happened, a lot of Christians actually started celebrating because they thought that this was one of the signs that God was going to come and disappear us away, and the world was going to, end in this chaotic bloodbath of nuclear or whatever. I think that doctrine has been massively destructive because it dictates our foreign policy. The big Israel lobby, I don't know if a lot of you guys know this, but one of the main reasons for the unilateral support of Israel has to do with the evangelical influence on lobbyists and thereby, senators and presidents. So the entire doctrine that focuses on the afterlife is, in my view, problematic in my most charitable mood. Jesus didn't say repent because so that when you die you can go to heaven. He didn't say that. 2,000 years ago he said repent, for the kingdom of God is at hand. So my view is that the kingdom of God, that the goal of Christians is to make earth look like heaven. That's what we're commanded to pray, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So that's a prayer to God, but it's also the marching orders. It's when a Roman general would go to one of the colonies, they would land there, they would clear the land of the bad guys, and they would set up shop in Rome, okay, after you conquered. Then you'd go back to home base, right? And then you'd come back like a year later to visit, and the colonists were supposed to make that area, whether it's Philippi or Germanus or whatever, your job as a colonist was to make that place look like Rome. So you were supposed to assimilate that colonized area to look like Rome. And that's the idea on the vertical sense, is that our job is to colonize the world and make the world look, obviously colonize is a bad term, but you guys get what I'm saying, is to make earth look like heaven. And so the focus on we're going to die and go to heaven has made it so that we've basically washed our hands of the mission of making earth look like heaven. And because of that, we've taken a sideline on real injustice. We don't care about the climate. Even things like animals rights, things like that. All of those things are in play for me because, again, I'm supposed to make earth look like heaven, right? So, yeah, I would say that's the biggest issue, is the heavy emphasis on the afterlife instead of the very this world issue. Do you think not being able to define a woman strips the identity of lesbian, gay, and bi as well as women? Well, when you say not able to define a woman, I think everybody can define a woman biologically. A woman is an adult human female. I'm speaking biologically. Obviously, gender is a socio-neural issue, and then gender expression is another issue, and then the fourth issue would be gendered roles. And it's a lot more complex than I think either side wants to admit. You have one side that says, nope, all I worry about is biology. That's all I care about. And then you have the other side that says trans women are women, and that's all we care about. And in my mind, both of those are oversimplifications. I think when you talk about the 4 levels of gender and identity and roles. I think that becomes very complex and extremely challenging. And anybody that pretends otherwise is just being disingenuous. And the people who are going to lose in that argument are going to be trans people. Just because of the sheer numbers, and because of libs of TikTok, which is having I got to tell you guys, I am blown away that Glad and the rest of those folks are not on the Dave Rubin show and Tucker Carlson and making hay about the crazy shit that we saw in libs of TikTok during Pride Month. I'm blown away. But as to your question, I don't know about the gay and bi identity, but what I will say is it appears to me that there is a serious backlash coming against trans people, and it's not from the Tucker Carlson folks, it's from women. It looks to me, I keep hearing this in a bunch of different contexts in a bunch of different countries, it looks to me like biological women feel like they're being edged out, pushed out, silenced, whatever. I was blown away. I'm blown away at the treatment of J.K. Rowling. It's unbelievable to me. I just think that that's such a mistake. It was women who pushed Donald Trump over the line and beat Hillary. It was white women that did that. And when I put my ear to the ground on this issue, I keep hearing women say that they feel they're being erased. And it doesn't seem to me that there's a understanding of that in the thought leaders of the trans community, and it doesn't seem to me that they understand the ramifications of that electorally speaking. I think that's it's a grave miscalculation on the part of the trans community. So I don't know much about how bi and other people feel about, but I do know that it seems to me that women are, I think there's going to be hell to pay in the next 2 to 4 years, electorally speaking. I think women are gonna make folk pay, and I'm like I said, I'm blown away that folks aren't addressing it. Vin, why do guys like me and you get the prettiest, sweetest, and most special ladies in the world and they marry us? I have no idea. I have no idea how that happened, bro. Right place, right time. Jason said, thanks for the super chat, by the way, Jason. I appreciate it. What would be the number one financial book you'd recommend for a 30-year-old that makes good money, still feels poor, and has no real financial know-how? I think Rich Dad, Poor Dad is a good one. Jason, if you, because the real thing is about automating revenue and really working for yourself and having your own business. That's where I'm at. I need one more approval from the FDA to go, really all out, and it's gonna be a good day when that happens. But I would read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It also gives you, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on your political disposition, it also gives you some pretty insightful workarounds for the tax code and things like that. What happened to the feed? I don't know what happened to the feed, but I guess it has come back on. J.K. Rowling is openly transphobic. She deserves every ounce of blowback she gets. Well, J.K. Rowling is a billionaire. I'm not sorry for her. But what I will say is she's a high-profile woman. And I don't know what it's like to be a woman, and neither do you, Ben. But I'm telling you, they're gonna make folk pay. There are more biological women on the planet and in the electorate than there are trans people. So, like I said, it's mind-boggling to me the way the horrible strategy that the community is using here, because it's mind-boggling to me. Think and Grow Rich, yeah, that's a good one too. Can you please post this after the live feed? I'm not able to watch right now. Thanks. Yeah, absolutely. It'll be there for sure. For sure. I'm going to see Nope this week. Did you know I went to high school with the twin white girls from Us? No, I did not know that. That's pretty cool. Me and Sori are going to see Nope this week as well. So that should be fun. Is my wife a lesbian if I identify as a woman? I look at news. Yeah, I hear you. I look at news. I mean, there are definitely like I said, logical pretzels, and that's why you have to make the division between biological sex at the base and then the psychoneural sort of experience of gender identity, self-experience of gender identity internally, and then there's the external expression of their gender identity, and then fourthly there would be the commensurate roles or positions, right? And it's the fourth level in my mind where the problems start, because the fourth level is I want to have a role of I want to be completely looked upon as playing a female role in society, which means I go into female bathrooms. If I end up in prison, I end up on the female ward, which sexual assaults have happened. Women have gotten pregnant from other women. I'm going to participate in sports. Leah Thomas beating everybody by 30. I think it's that fourth level that the community really needs to figure out, because they're getting severe blowback on that because it's impractical. In my view, Leah Thomas exposed his junk in the women's locker room and bragged about still dating women. I read that article. And again, that's one of those situations where I don't get it. In the transcript, I would completely cut bait with Leah Thomas. I would, if I was in the community, I'd completely decry her and say, nope, this is terrible. This to me is one of those situations where, I understand what it's like to operate from a deficit, being black and being pro-life. I understand what it's like to operate as a deficit. I understand the strategy and the work and the dedication you have to studying the people that are against you to persuade people to get to your side. And it just doesn't seem to me that these folks are that concerned. And I think there's going to be, like I said, I just think there's going to be hell to pay in the electorate. I really do. How do you balance between being a good father and going after the hustle? I feel like a lot of men feel like they have to pick between devoting themselves to their kids and immersing themselves in their work. Yeah. We have a very unique lifestyle. We homeschool the kids. So like we're literally with them 24/7. If they're around us all the time. And so, that's kind of how I balance it out. Obviously, there's a couple days in the week where they go see their mom, so it's difficult, and I never feel like I'm spending enough time with them, especially as they get older and older and older. And it's weird because we've got basically two sets. My oldest is 16, and my youngest is not even born yet, so it's difficult, and you never feel like you're spending enough time with them. I mean, I certainly don't. Which one is Leah Thomas? Is that the swimmer? Yes. Leah Thomas is the swimmer. Yeah, something is going on with YouTube in Middle America. I mean, it keeps going in and out. I don't know why, but Vin, why are you not wearing Beatles shirts? Okay, Dwayne, if you send me a John Lennon shirt, I will rock that shirt for a week. I promise you. I promise you I will. Let me see. Is her attraction to you based on how you identify yourself? Have you ever read the Talmud? Yes, I've read excerpts of the Talmud. I mean, I've read a good chunk of the Talmud. Did he skip my super chat or did I miss it? Let me check, Jason Kramer. I hope I didn't miss your super chat. Hold on, let me check. What would be the number one? Yeah, so Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and Think and Grow Rich are both really, really good. Think and Grow Rich has a lot to do with like the mentality that you need to have. It's really good for mentality. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is more, it's very, very practical, nuts and bolts type of thing. First half is principial and the second half is a lot more didactic. It's pretty good. I don't mind using pronouns for individuals. We call Dwayne Johnson The Rock. Right. What does bothers me is trying to change facts. There are only two types of Gamites. Yeah, I mean, gutter gods, I agree. And like we had what do I think of Dave Ramsey? Well, I think Dave Ramsey gives obvious solid financial advice. I know a kid, and the guy's not even a Christian, but he used Dave Ramsey's methodologies, and hold on, guys. Yeah, so Dave Ramsey is yeah. The Quran is the Old Testament, New Testament plus Muhammad. Well, the Quran invalidates on purpose a lot of the new I mean the basic function and purpose of the New Testament. So there are definitely allusions to New Testament stories, intertestamental stories, and apocryphal stories in the Quran for sure. But I wouldn't say that it's a combination of the New Testament. It seems to me to be actively trying to refute the New Testament to a degree. I use reciprocity when it comes to talking and handling individuals. You respect me, I'll respect you back. Yeah, I think most people are like that. Which is why, I think most of us are fine with the pronoun thing. But then you start getting into like there's 150 genders and things like that, and people start just going, Muslims believe Jesus is a prophet. That's true, but the New Testament doesn't present Jesus as merely a prophet. The New Testament presents Jesus as Yahweh in flesh, as the eternal Son of God, the creator of the world. And the Quran explicitly says that Jesus is not that. So it also says that Jesus never died on the cross, and if he never died on the cross, he didn't die for your sins, and he obviously didn't rise from the dead. So the grounding presuppositions of what Christianity is claiming is completely contradicted by the Quran, self-consciously. So that's why I would put an asterisk by the New Testament combination thingamajiggy. Transgender people aren't changing facts. They're placing themselves within a social structure with intersubjective definitions. They aren't changing facts. You're conflating gender and sex. Well, again, Ben, I think if people in this community, people that are politically astute, whatever you want to call it, I definitely see how people could make that distinction. But the average person who's not knee deep into politics all the time is doesn't see the distinction and is completely confused, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of help for those people. And there doesn't seem, like I said, there doesn't seem to be an indication that those people vote. Then do you really like Slipknot? I tried, but there's nothing for me. Yeah, I like heavy music. Ben calls it, knuckle dragger music, whatever you want to say. I love heavy music, so I do like Slipknot. I also think that Corey's a really, really good vocalist. Hey, I finally made it to a live stream. What's up, Captain Obvious? Good to see you, buddy. Really, really good to see you. So, yeah, that's good. Yeah, I really do like Slipknot, actually. Thoughts on Kant's philosophy of religion? You'll have to be a lot more specific. Right now, I'm doing a lot of work on panpsychism and, Don Hoffman's conscious agents theory, which obviously blends very nicely with obviously a panpsychist, non-materialist view of origins. My wife just sent me some test result, and she, it turns out to be, it's annoying, but it's not detrimental. But she's 27 weeks pregnant, and she goes, "Look at this test result," and I didn't know how to interpret it, but anyway. Slipknot is the metal version of the wheels on the bus. Man. I'll say this. I do not support abortion. It does become an extreme when you have to pay child support at conception. I actually really disagree with that. I'm glad for child support at conception because I have been through 5 or 6 pregnancies, and there is definitely support that the woman needs during the pregnancy. For example, what if the girl's got hyperemesis? Sori doesn't have hyperemesis, but this baby is kicking her ass. And, I'm fighting like mad to just get her to lay down and sleep. But, she's obsessed with the channel. She's all the people on Patreon, and they email her and they have conversations every day. She doesn't want to let them down, things of that nature. But she'll tell you she's got one of the best jobs in the world. And she doesn't have hyperemesis. They've given her Zoloft. They've given her promethazine, all these things to help with the nausea, but it's kicking the crap out of her. So for, right now we don't have paid maternity leave for women as a federal law. So there needs to be compensation for that woman right from conception, in my view. On top of the fact that, when a woman is going to give birth, we call that going into labor. But as a guy who has witnessed 5 or 6 pregnancies, they're laboring from the get-go. First trimester, you can't keep anything down. They're working. They're really, really working. One of the things that this entire discussion has really brought to my mindset is our economy. The American capitalist economy is still biased toward men, and I don't mean that malevolently. I think we're doing it without thinking. What I mean by that is our economy was built on the traditional nuclear family, that the woman stays home, takes care of the kid, the man goes out there, he's the primary breadwinner. So in America, especially in a hyper-capitalist society like America, you don't have this push for paid maternity leave because we're still in the mindset of the guy is the major breadwinner. So I think we need to update our economic levers and biases to bias it actually towards the woman and away from us. So if you had an economy that was biased towards women, you would have maternity leave, you'd have paid maternity leave, you'd have certain things as markers in your, you would have, basic things like on-site childcare, things of that nature. You don't have those things in America currently because we're still operating from the idea that the man is the breadwinner. So I think our economy has got to be updated to account for that. But yes, I do believe that a man absolutely should pay child support from the moment of conception because that woman is absolutely working. And as the scripture says, the worker is worthy of their wages. And what I would say to brothers is that, men, if you don't want to pay child support at conception, then handle your business properly. See what I'm saying? So that's how I feel about it. I don't have a question, but I will think of one. Awesome. I appreciate it. You should move to Australia. If you have 4 kids, the government will give you $1,200 a week. Holy smokes. Hey, Vin, are you Catholic? Nah, I am a Protestant, I think. Protestant. Feelings on Paul's legitimacy as an apostle, despite there being nothing written that Jesus anointed him like the rest of the apostles. Sorry if this one is obvious. I'm not as well read on this as you. I'll answer the easier question first. Tupac or Biggie? I'd say Biggie all day. I think I'm a better rapper than Tupac, but again, I'm from New York City, so obviously I'm biased. I just don't think Tupac was lyrically... I've never heard of a Tupac lyric and was like, oh my God, I can't believe he said that. Whereas Biggie, I mean, every 2 seconds, I'm still figuring out stuff that Biggie meant from 20 years ago. Like, your mom's an actress, didn't want to show me the safe, but it's okay, she was old anyway. Stuff like that. Like, really subtle, brilliant stuff. So that's my take on Tupac and Biggie. As far as the apostleship of Paul... he was not, none of them were actually anointed in the sense of like the ritual of pouring down the oil or whatever. But you're right. Paul explicitly says that I'm the last among the apostles. And he basically he actually used the term like stillborn. He's like, I like a stillborn child. I was the last of the apostles. But I think the legitimacy of Paul is dealt with pretty explicitly in 2 Peter chapter 4. Now, obviously, this is coming from Peter, who, our Catholics friends would say Peter was the first pope. So for the purposes of this discussion, I will go with Peter being the pope because it helps. It helps in the passage I'm about to show you. So it's 2 Peter. Maybe it's chapter 5. Give me a second, because I want to quote the thing exactly to you, but my computer Dora is. I'm gonna have to do another purge of this computer. Let me see here. Yeah, it's 2 Peter 3, actually. Give me a second, guys. Let me get all my stuff in order. Drewski asked a theological questions, so I got to do it. Okay, so here it is right here, Drew. Here is where I get my understanding about Paul and his legitimacy is 2 Peter chapter 3. And Peter says the following, if I can get this document onto the screen. It's a yellow wheel of death. All right, I'll just read it to you and then I'll get it on the screen. Peter says, count the patience of our Lord as salvation, just as our beloved brother Paul also wrote to you according to the wisdom given to him, as he does in all his letters when he speaks in them of these matters. There are some things in them that are hard to understand, which the ignorant and unstable twist to their own destruction, as they do the other scriptures. So notice there that Peter is saying that Paul's words are scripture. So when he talks about, he says, as they do the other scriptures, which means in his mind that Paul's words are scripture. But he admits, yeah, some of the stuff Paul says is not for a novice, because some of the stuff he says can be misconstrued. Paul's doctrine of grace, for example, where Paul says where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more. People take that and say, well, if sin abounds and then grace abounds to cover sin, then let's sin so that God can give us more grace. That's not the point of grace, but that's just an example. So that's what I would say, is that Peter, the first pope, legitimized Paul. He said that Paul had wisdom, and he also put Paul's writings on par with scripture. So because of that, I would say that Paul is a legitimate apostle, because he basically got an imprimatur from one of the lead apostles. The reason I cannot find it Middle America, because I've been blocked. I think the picture of a woman in her third and what the baby looks like has doomed me. Would just like to read the comments. I don't think that you're blocked, because I can still see you. One of the admins probably did that, but I don't know. But if you're an admin, can you check on Donald's status? Because I don't know. The legitimacy of Paul was covered by Harry Dean Stanton in The Last Temptation of Christ. I got to go watch that one again. If you had the option of putting someone in Biden's place for 2024, who would you select? I was going to say Bernie. I don't know if Bernie has the stamina to deal with a Republican majority, though. I really don't know. I'll have to really think about that. I'm not sure. How do you reconcile differences with friends who have different opinions on you, such as important topics such as abortion? Struggling with this at the moment. Yeah, I'm actually in a music group with somebody that I'm in a mortal combat with relative to the topic of abortion. My thing is that as a Christian, I believe in original sin. That means I believe all of us are horrible. And I said this earlier in another video, that the only thing that separates me from Hitler is God's grace. So from a Christian perspective, I can fight like mad with certain people, And then on the one hand, I could say the only reason I'm seeing this, as obvious as I'm seeing it, is because God in His mercy has given me eyes to see. And so it helps me to separate the person from the position that they're holding. I also know how easy it is to be influenced by the crowd and how hard it is to go up against the zeitgeist. Everybody sees that picture of Hitler. Everybody's doing this salute, and then there's a one guy with his arms crossed, and everybody wants to believe that they'd be that one guy. The odds of you being that one guy are massively slim, and so I take that into account when I have those discussions. I mean, I speak passionately about abortion. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows that I'm willing to pay, whatever price necessary to remove the scourge from our planet. But I also know that all of us are very frail, and it only takes certain situations to create those moments. I remember being a young kid in high school and having a pregnancy scare with my girlfriend, and that absolutely popped into my mind almost immediately. By God's grace, that person wasn't pregnant, but would I have done it? I mean, I can't say. I'd like to say I'd never have done that. I don't know what I would have done at 16. I could tell you it came into my mind at 16 absolutely as an option. So it's understanding our own shared humanity and the frailty of humanity and the frailty of our own consistency with our own morality that makes me say, yeah, I'm going to fight like mad about this, but I still see the image of God in that person. I still see redeeming qualities in that person because God still sees redeeming qualities in me for His own reasons. And if you've ever had the unfortunate providence of living with me or being in a real close relationship with me, you'll see that in order to maintain a relationship with me, you've got to look really hard and find those redeeming qualities. And I mean that literally. So those are the kind of things that go into my mind. But yeah, in the middle of the jihad, it looks like, you'll never be friends with these people. But, I go back to them, tell them I love them, whatever. They love me, inshallah, and we keep it moving. That's how I look at it. Today is the 2nd year anniversary of Michael Brooks' death. I was kind of just getting into progressive media, right? Because so at the time of Michael Brooks' death, R.I.P. to him, all I knew was Young Turks. So I saw Bernie in the Killer Mike interview, and then I was looking for Bernie on YouTube. That's how I ran into Young Turks. I'm like, holy shit. I thought at the time Young Turks were the only progressive station there was, and they were really kind of gave me the understanding of the entire outlook, which made me fall in love with progressivism, which is why, I don't know if it's a false loyalty thing, but I'm never going to completely write off the Young Turks because Bernie got me to give progressives a hearing, but it was TYT that got me to believe in progressivism, obviously a modified form of progressivism. By the time I discovered Sam Sater, was it the Hill and Jimmy, unfortunately the big homie had gone on to the A and so I didn't really get a chance, but I did see that. Unfortunately, really, Rig, it was the last time that across the board all the progressives were unified in mourning this dude's death. And it wasn't shortly after that the progressive left completely exploded over on YouTube. So, and you have to ask yourself, if he was still around, because he seemed to be a soft-hearted kind of guy. You have to ask yourself, if he was still around, maybe things would have been different between, the warring camps of progressives. I mean, you can never know, but he just seemed to be a gentle soul that was, would have promoted some unity. I don't know. But yeah, rest in peace to him. Michael Brooks, because he died so sudden. Did anybody know what happened to him, by the way? Good Good evening, Vin. Great to see you. Hey, Bob O'Reilly. Good to see you, too. Do you watch football? Who's your favorite team? If you're talking about American football, yes. I spent a pretty penny to see Tom Brady versus the Patriots. I'm not going to talk about how much money I spent to go to see that spectacle. And the only way I could justify how much capital we spent on seeing that game was, one, seeing the greatest quarterback. To me, Tom Brady is the greatest athlete and the greatest leader in sports history ever. I'm talking about going back to Roman Coliseum days. Tom Brady and John Mace Jr. are, to me, the greatest leaders aside from Christ that have ever stepped foot on this planet. I have so much respect for those guys. Yeah, I love football. I don't have a favorite team. Any team Tom Brady's on, that's my team. Any team Tom Brady's on is my team. That's how I feel about it. So Baba, yes, I love American football. And I love Tom Brady. I just love him. I love his passion. I love his drive. I strive to, Jonathan Edwards had these resolutions that he wrote when he was a teenager, and they were amazing. But there were two lines from his resolution that have stuck with me. He said, "I often hear elderly people talk about what they would have done should they had the opportunity to be young again," and then under it he puts resolved. To live my youth in such a way as when I become an old man, I never have to say that. So that stuck with me. The second one that stuck with me was, he said, resolved to live with all my might as long as I live. And to me, Brady embodies that. The when he's out there on the field and he's running and he's played his 9 millionth football game and he's done, and he's still, let's go, like that roar. Like, I love that kind of passion for life. Because it's something that I strive for. And, sometimes it spills out in being very passionate, online. And, I don't make any apologies for it because I'm trying to exist. I'm trying to exist in the moment as much as I possibly can. And like to have my consciousness completely unified with the metaphysical idea of what I'm talking about, on top of even the awareness of like where my feet are on the ground. My feet are crossed underneath the table right now, feeling the chair. It's half on my back. Like I'm just trying to inhabit the moment as much as I possibly can. And Tom Brady, to me, kind of, he represents that to me. So that's my thing. I love Tom Brady. He's an inspiration, even though he dominated us for 14 years. Yeah, it's really inspirational. It really is. And I'm very happy that I got to see that game where he played New England. I got to see him run up on the field, and Sori and I actually became friends, pretty good friends, with a member of the Patriots on that trip, and we've got like a lasting relationship now. It's pretty crazy how stuff works out. So every time there's a Patriots game, like, me and this guy's dad are talking, watching his son play football. It's pretty. Actually, he's not on the Patriots anymore. He's with the Chargers now. So if you know anything, you know who I'm talking about. But yeah, that was a great experience. That was an unforgettable experience. If I had to do it over again, would I have paid all that money? I don't know. That was a lot of money, man. It's a lot of money. Robert Kraft definitely got his money's worth out of that spectacle for sure. Will there ever be a reaction to the Operation Mindcrime? Yeah. There's gonna be the Mindcrime. There's gonna be a Mindcrime album review. We're talking. We're in the back room talking with some folks about negotiating for album reviews. So we've got a couple on the way. But yeah, Mind Crying is something that people have been asking me for a long time. Parrot, I got to tell you guys, if I didn't break my guitar string, I'd be playing right now because I'm trying to finalize a song for one of the members of this band, and it's really frustrating. Really, really frustrating. I broke that string. It really pisses me off. But I'm really excited for you guys to hear the song. I'm really, really proud of it, especially that middle. I'm really, really, really proud of it. So hopefully we can get that straight. Tom Brady's loved because he's older than the average football player, correct? He gives us all old dudes hope that our delusions of grandeur and something winning the Super Bowl might come true too. Yeah. I just like his that dedication, you know, the dedication to the craft and the dedication to being great. It's very hard to be at the top of your game. I remember when we started about 4 or 5 years ago, there were so many people that were doing what we were doing, and there are not a lot left from that group of people that we started with. Because it's a grind. Things are very exciting at the beginning. I think a lot of people are like, oh, I'd love to be a YouTuber. And like I said, it's the greatest job in the world, but there's a real grind to it. There's a lot of, and if you allow your emotions to be tied to your views and your subscriptions and the comment section, it's just very exhausting emotionally for a lot of people. So that the stick-to-itiveness, the ability to keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going and grind and grind and grind and work, and you know, especially with us, you know, if I'm really convicted about this. I'm never gonna shortchange a review ever. So if we're going to do the review, I'm going to go all out and give that person 100% of my attention and my effort and my analysis and all that. And maybe it gets mentally exhausting, but for whatever reason people want to see you, then I feel like I owe them my absolute best. And so it's a grind, and a lot of people drop off. We just had a consult call with people that I'm sure you know, and there are people that have 1 million subs, but are literally 1 million subs, but are having a hard time converting that into capital. That it's a very, very difficult game. It really, really is, and a lot of people like have a lot of misconceptions about how it works and things like that. And you know, all of us, you know, published in Rolling Stones or published in other magazines and things like that, and people see that on the outside like, oh man, they got it made, they're all set now. It's like, that's not the case. Like I said, I was talking to somebody, they got featured in Rolling Stone magazine and still not making any money, and they're like, how are you know, how do we do this? And you know, so that's why I like Tom. You know, it's because it's being able to just grind and keep giving the fans 100% and not shortchanging people. Like, I felt like when I went to that game, he put out as much as he possibly could. And so I hope that people feel that way as well. If they see a video, whether they like it or not, whether they like the band or not, that they say, okay, well, at least he gave it his all, you know. And Sori's the same way. What is your Eucharistic theology? Do you hold to mere memorialism or perhaps real spiritual presence a la Calvin? I'm on the spectrum. I'm closer. I'm if you put, you know, real presence Catholicism over here and Calvin over here, I'm somewhere in the middle. I don't believe it's just a metaphorical memorial. I also don't believe that when the priest says the words of consecration that it becomes the full body, blood, soul, and divinity of Christ. I don't believe that. But I do believe that something interdimensional is truly happening with the hosts. I do believe that whatever this physical world is, that there are physical icons that God has given us to connect dimensions. And so I actually have some sort of scientific understanding of the Eucharist based on what I've been looking at with panpsychism and things of that nature, which is essentially to say that what we call the physical world and physical elements at times function actually as portals to interfacing with the other dimension. So I think something like that is happening in the Eucharist. I don't think it's only metaphorical. I don't think you can establish that, especially in early church history. Obviously, the complex of Roman Catholic theology relative to that is obviously something that has developed over time. I understand that, but I definitely believe in a Calvinian real presence, but more so than even he would articulate, but less so than Catholicism. And you're the only person that understands what I just said, so there you go. Alex Hoffman. Alex Hoffman. Are you talking about who? I don't know who Alex Hoffman is. I know that there's a is a love for money the main reason you have for-profit healthcare, prisons, universities, political systems? It's not a bad idea that your country's main system stems from the root of all evil. Oh, I agree. No, Eric, I agree. I agree. And I love the way that you put it. The love of money. The Paul doesn't say money is the root of all evil. He says the love of money is the root of all evil. And yeah, I agree. I agree. I think that you could even have a humanitarian capitalist society if you mixed it in with some socialist safety nets relative to healthcare and things of that nature. But yeah, I agree with you. It's not necessarily capital. Alex Hefner, yeah, Alex Hefner. Hef is a really, he's a friend of mine. Like we've got each other's numbers and stuff like that. We're gonna debut one of our songs on his channel. He's one of the guys, and Hef is massively. He's another guy that's really, really disciplined. I mean, I think I can say this. I mean, he passed the bar exam. I mean, he's a lawyer, and you know the type of dedication you need to be a lawyer, an attorney. So Hef is he's another guy that's just grinding out, and he's a genuine dude, man. Like he's a guy. I talked to him behind the scenes. He's really genuine about what he puts out there. But yeah, he's another one of those guys that's got the stick to itiveness. Hey, Podge Mahaj, haven't seen you in a while. Is it a regular belief among Christians that people possess a soul that is fundamentally unchanging? It gets talked a lot in my classes, but I don't know how that is widely held by anybody. What do you mean by unchanging? That's an interesting. Explicate unchanging a little bit to me. I've got an appointment, guys, in 15 minutes. Just letting you guys know. Are you familiar with the comic book The Invisibles? No, but I get in moods where I want to devour comics. So, if there is a series on that, I'd like to know. That would be awesome. Let me see here. Ooh, are you familiar with the concept of biocentrism? Centering life? I'm not familiar with biocentrism, like saying that. Let me see here. Ethical perspective holding that all life deserves equal moral consideration or has equal moral standing. Okay. So like all life, like plant life and bacteria? Like how biocentric are we being, like all life, bacteria? Because if that was the case, how do you reconcile the humans, the fact that as Bernardo Kastrup says, the fact that we have to kill to survive. And even if you say I'm going to be a vegetarian, you still have to kill to survive. In Buddhist classes, they talk about the idea of non-self because consciousness is constantly changing, and who you are 5 minutes from now is completely distinct from who you are now. And they use that to contrast with Christian belief, but I didn't think anybody thought anything to the contrary. I was listening to Sam Harris talk about the non-self idea. He was just making a distinction between person and the soul. I don't think idea non-self consciousness is constantly. Yeah, but my body is constantly changing too. But there's still the outline of what I am. Physically. Like baby Vin is still adult Vin body wise. But as far as like, does your soul like so for example, like I've got a 3-year-old right now, and the way that I interact with him, there is continuity and discontinuity from when he was a baby. Like the things that made him smile when he was a baby, you tickle his belly and he'll his face will light up. Like he's still that kid, but obviously he is that kid and more now. So I'm not sure. That's a very fascinating question. Obviously, God is the only being that's completely unchanging from a Christian worldview. So I think we're constantly changing, but there's still that continuity. So I guess I'm in the middle somewhere. Can you review the new Megadeth? That's very, very possible. We had heard that the Slipknot song came out, and so it's like, well, it had just come out. We just got done doing a mega stream. It was 8 songs, and we went down there and took care of it. But yeah, a lot of people after the Slipknot song were asking for the Megadeth song, so that's not impossible. I've got a place to be in 14 minutes. Oh, there you go. I remember you doing Dark Side of the Moon. Would you ever do a full reaction to The Wall? Yes. Yes. We're definitely going to do a full reaction to The Wall. The whole thingamajiggy, for sure. After we did Dark Side of the Moon, I had that in my car for a good year and a half every day. Like, unbelievable. Hey, Michelle, do you believe that although all divine providence is infallible or unfrustratable as regards the realization of the universal end, nevertheless, general providence, whether natural or supernatural, is fallible or frustratable in respect to a particular end of each individual or each individual act? Well, Jonathan Edwards talked about, John Piper, and quoting Jonathan Edwards, talked about God's will of command versus God's will of decree. So Proverbs says when a righteous man is convicted, and when an innocent man, when a righteous man is convicted and a wicked man goes free, the Lord hates both. But then with Jesus and Barabbas, that's exactly what happened. And yet Acts 4 tells us, truly in this city they were gathered against your holy servant Jesus, Herod, Pontius Pilate, and the Jews. They did to him whatever your will and power determined beforehand should happen. So relative to God's, secret decree, God decreed that Christ would be betrayed by Judas, and that the crowd would choose Barabbas over Jesus. So in that respect, God's will was not frustrated. They were doing exactly what he was saying. But God's will of command relative to his disposition, as far as being a just God in the moment, is something that was contradicted, frustrated, whatever you want to call it. So I think the temporal aspect of the will of God versus the eternal decree of the will of God, I think, is covered in that concept, probably. I don't even know if that was really the question, but that's where I fall on it. Would you ever hunt your own food? I've never hunted food, but I would if I was going to say I would if I had to, but no, I would. I'm in Maine. I don't really like going out in the woods with people, especially with weapons. So, Invisibles deals with themes like the Eucharist, but the idea is that good and evil are third dimensional interpretations of a fourth dimensional experience. Humans. Oh, yeah, Brandon, I'd like to check that out. That's really fascinating. Later, Barry. Never go hunting with Dick Cheney. Didn't the guy that got shot by Dick Cheney end up apologizing to him? That was so weird, bro. That was so weird. Yeah, Sori's doing good, Michelle. Just a little bit of little sicky because of the kid. This pregnancy is pretty rough. But she's sticking with it. She's really sticking with it. So good for her. But we're on the home stretch, inshallah. And I got this thing on my eye. I went to the woods with Sori for our date day, and this bug. Don't you hate it when the bug like goes right into your eye? Just popped up. It feels better though. Yesterday was terrible. I would agree. The antecedent will can be frustrated, so to speak, but the consequent will is unimpedable or infallible. Yeah, I agree. And, some of this is, for me, when I think about the varying degrees of the will of God, is like, what if you could write a story that you loved, but that you could enter into the story as one of the characters? You would still write things that frustrate you. J.K. Rowling talks about like crying over characters that she's killed in books. Well, if you killed the character, why are you crying over it? You could simply write the character to, not die. So I do think that in that sense, God's will can be frustrated in that sense, in that he could experience it in reality, or in time. And that he can choose to experience it temporally in the moment, and simultaneously that he can choose to experience it as the author of the person writing the story, and have that smile because he knows that it's all going to be good in the end. And so when you see wicked people, you can still be mad at them and say and you can know that God is mad with you too, because he's interfacing in the story in real time. But at the same time, I can also have peace in knowing that, yeah, but he wrote the story and it's going to end good. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. When you went on your date day, did you talk over her or tell her she's wrong? No. What did we do the last date day? We just drove around. Honestly, like, I just love I love driving with her because it's just me and her. And there's no kids, and there's nothing to do. And because you're driving, you can't really be on your phone. So we get a lot of, for me, there's a lot of quality. I need a lot of that. I need that time with her, like where I can just be completely alone, and I don't have to worry about the phone, and we don't have to worry about hearing the kids. And so most date days are just, I feel bad for her because, she likes doing stuff. I just like driving with her and talking. Some of my Twitter followers said I don't love my daughter and that I'm not a good mom. Well, Michelle, because I won't get her vaccinated Yeah, I think by now anybody that, I was just talking to a friend of mine and I was telling her, because she's on like her third booster, and I'm like, I wouldn't do that if I were you, and I definitely wouldn't get my kid a COVID vax. I wouldn't worry too much about what those people say, Michelle. A lot of those people don't even have kids themselves, so what do they know about it? You know what I'm saying? So, anyway. Clarissa says, Ian Kirby, I subscribe to your channel. That is great. Everybody subscribe to Ian's channel. That would be awesome. That would be really, really cool. So shout out to Ian Kirby. Let's see, where are we at? 7 minutes, guys. 7 minutes, and I have another appointment. 7 minutes. Yeah, Twitter. Vin, look at my last comment. Let me see here. Jason. Yeah, I answered that. Can we review the new Megadeth? Yeah, I said I was going to because a lot of people were asking about that new Megadeth song after we did the Slipknot song. So I think people were like not prepared for us to do that song or whatever. Do you like death metal? Yeah, I do like death metal. I like the melodic Swedish death metal. That's probably my favorite. One of my favorite genres. I think black metal. Magua is probably my favorite black metal band out there. I just love what they do, and everybody knows I'm a sucker for tremolo picking. So, yeah, Michelle, I know you love your daughter, and look, whatever anybody believes, God gave her to you for a specific reason. There's 8 billion people on the planet, and God chose you two specifically. So that means you guys are the man and woman for the job. It's he picked you for that kid. So you are the best person on the planet to make those decisions for that particular human being. And I think you made the right call. I think the other vaccinations, the traditional polio, mumps, measles, rubella, I think all those are important. And I think you should, if you haven't already, educate yourself on those. And I do believe in those. But this COVID stuff and all the rest of it, I think there is enough for us to be extremely cautious about it, particularly with children. So I think you've done a great job with that. And look, none of these decisions are easy, man. None of these decisions are easy. Hey, what's up, the Willie Bragg Show? Ever gonna react to good music again? I don't know, man. There's been a lot of these like bands that are very, very not popular, not known, not reacted to in the reaction community. That there's this band named Nis. I've been listening to one of their songs for a very, very, on repeat all the time. There's been a lot of jewels that I've found from the not so popular main stage band. And I think it's one of the reasons for our longevity. I don't know how much Tool and Slipknot and Metallica I could listen to year over year over year. So I love the format that we have where we don't have, I literally don't know what to expect when we listen to a song, and I love that. No disrespect to Tool and any of the big bands, obviously, because that was the bread and butter of the channel, obviously. Netflix docuseries called How to Change Your Mind about the efficacy of psychedelics, highly recommended. Yes. There's a new avant-garde death metal song featuring a sax part from Kenny G. Yeah, that was another crazy revelation of mine was... damn, I forgot the name of the band, but yeah, they play a sax, and holy smokes, it was unbelievable. You never answered me years ago. What stands out in music when you listen to? What don't you gravitate to? If I'm listening to rap, obviously I look at the lyrics first, but the beat's got to be crazy. When I listen to metal, first thing I'm looking for is guitar. And bands that emphasize the guitar are very, I like guitar-driven bands the most. God wasn't so good to my dad. He fought it for 3 years and passed away. Well, that depends on how you define good. I could tell you that God was really, really good to your dad because he gave you to him. And I think that your dad, if I could dare to speak for him, if I were to say, hey, you can live another 30 years, but you don't have Baba, or you die now, but you had your whole lifetime, with Baba, what would you pick? I think he'd say, he'd take the world with you 10 times out of 10. So you being the child of your father is, I'm sure he'd probably say that's all. If God never did anything before or after for him, that would be enough. Because I'm sure he loved you very, very deeply. And I'm sure that he loved being able to love you. So that's what I'd say to that. I got to spend the last 10 years of life with him, so that was really good. Exactly. There it is. There it is. There it is, right? You know? So if I were to say to your dad, "Hey, I'll give you another 20 years. We're just going to delete those last 10 years of Baba," he wouldn't take it. He wouldn't take it. So I think he loved you very, very deeply. And like I said, it's being able to love my kids is a gift in itself, right? I love them, but knowing that I love them and experiencing the love that I have for them is itself a gift that if God took me out tomorrow, I'd say he's been more than gracious to me. That's how I look at it. You are late to the party, but we have another party on the way. So much love to all of you guys. I got to get out of here because we have another appointment and commitment. And it's time to listen to some music. I don't promote the other channel on this channel, but to all those in the know, we will see you very, very soon. Arminianism. I will talk about Arminianism the next time I do an Ask Me Anything. Much love to all you beautiful people. I have to get out of here. Much love.